Welcome to my mausoleum. Here I share with you scary stories, many of which are said to be true. If people think you're kinda weird too, then hit subscribe and join the family. So get comfortable as we delve into the darkness together. Here we go. I rubbed my bloodshot eyes and took a swig from my lukewarm 2-litre cola. Wriggling around in my chair, I tried to dull the oncoming butt pain. I was usually careful to get up and walk around every so often during long gaming sessions, but not tonight. Tonight I was laser focused on my 20-inch computer screen. The devil on the throne was almost 35 years old, but the game still boasted a dedicated community of active players. I pulled my hoodie strings tight and pressed on. I had already sunk more hours than I was willing to admit into this game, so why stop now? Closing in on my goal, I shut off my video stream so that no one else could witness my final pursuit. Not that I had to worry too much about my trade secrets getting out. Viewers sometimes stumbled onto my channel, but would generally stumble away just as quickly. Sarah the Gamer 0101 was anything but a popular streaming channel. I admit I wasn't the most entertaining girl streaming content on the internet. Sitting silently, grinding away at an old game, and occasionally stuffing my face with a handful of Doritos. It was actually quite pitiful. The warrior character that I controlled in the game continued to work his way through the long, pixelated tunnel. I had input the complicated digging command so many times that my fingers practically moved without instruction from my brain. Together, the community of gamers had found several numbers hidden in the game. The general feeling was that these numbers, when combined, would provide coordinates to something important in the real world. Believing I was on the path to be the first to find the last numbers, I had sunk nearly 40 hours over the last 3 days and nights into grinding away at that tunnel, chipping away at the wall towards the spot that I believed would reveal the digits. Just when I thought my eyes would quit on me, it happened. The warrior's axe plunged through the last of the little grey pixels, and I advanced onto the next screen. They were there. I had all the numbers I needed. I hurriedly threw a beat-up backpack full of snacks into my rusty Civic, and then I sped away from my apartment. The coordinates revealed a location that was roughly 3 hours away. I'd been up all night gaming and couldn't wait to find out what these coordinates would reveal. So with extra large coffee in hand, I was on my way before the sun had come up. Opening up my podcast app, I selected the retro gaming podcast, Retroverse. The host was a bore and his coverage of games was pretty rudimentary. However, as it happened, that week he was hosting a retrospective on The Devil on the Throne. I turned it on, skipping the cheesy intro song. Hello everyone, this is Retroverse and I'm your host, Alex Matthews. Now to start, I'm a little out of sorts this week. My cat bit me and then I had to take it to the vet. Get on with it, I muttered. Arrogant podcasters thinking every little event in their lives was a shareable moment. I smashed the fast forward button. Annoying Alex continued after the time skip. Now me and the cat are back on good terms. Okay, to the topic at hand. Today we're going to discuss a classic 2D side-scrolling dungeon crawler, The Devil on the Throne, and its creator, Pierre Drouin. Can you believe it? This game turns 35 years old next week. It's almost as old as me, and let me tell you, I am getting old. You know, I didn't meet my wife on a dating site. I met her on a carbon dating site. I understandably considered shutting off the podcast as the host chuckled at his own lame joke, but I pushed on. Anyways, this classic game is the story of a young warrior's quest to slay the titular devil who kidnaps the warrior's soon-to-be wife. A simple yet personal story for the game's creator. Here's a clip taken from an interview with Druin during the game's development. Druin's voice faded in, soft and shaky.
This has been a difficult process for me. My personal life was a wreck when I started this game, so my mind was all over the place. Sometimes artists are at their most creative when they're at their worst personally though, right? I don't want to get too deep into that, but I'll just say this. Charlotte, if you're listening, I still love you and I did this for you.
Alex's voice came back on. Heartbreaking stuff. Druin was, of course, referring to his wife, Charlotte, who he reported had run off with another man right before he came up with the idea for the game. Nothing that he released later on ever touched the popularity of The Devil on the Throne, a game which he created almost single-handedly. The game still has an active community of players, but it's more than just nostalgia driving these gamers. There's a persistent rumour that an undiscovered Easter egg remains in the game. It is believed that Druin, being the isolated eccentric that he is, will sign the rights to his gaming company onto whoever discovers that Easter egg. I pressed down harder on the gas. In a few hours I would know exactly what I'd worked so hard for. I grabbed my backpack, stepped out of my car and into a dense forest. The GPS indicated that my destination was a few hundred feet off of the dirt road where my car sat along the shoulder. All I saw were trees, but it wasn't like I was going to stop now. As I stomped over crunchy leaves and fragile twigs and neared the marker on my GPS, I grew nervous. What if it was all just part of a bigger game? What if it led to nothing? Only a few feet from the supposed destination, and still seeing nothing but pointy branches and poison ivy, gloom rushed through me. Tears welled in my eyes as I thought of all those wasted hours. Thunk. I was standing on something. I stepped back and dropped down to my hands and knees. It was a large, square piece of plywood, and there was a circular brass handle on it. Grabbing the handle without thinking, I pulled. The wood flung back and I shrieked when I almost tumbled headfirst into the large hole that the plywood concealed. I tried to use my phone's flashlight to see into the hole, but it was no use. The only thing that was clearly visible was the ladder leading down into the unknown. Carefully pulling myself onto the ladder, I descended. About 30 feet down, there was an abrupt jolt of hard concrete under my feet. I tried the phone flashlight again. Still not able to see much, I simply started walking the only way that I could. I continued down what seemed to be a narrow tunnel that led in only one direction. Still pointing my useless flashlight around this way and that, trying to catch a glimpse of anything. Somehow though, I knew this was the right way. Just like the game, a tunnel to my goal. Then I saw something just a few feet in front of me. Inching forward, I swung my hands out in front of me until I caught hold of a smooth, circular object. I held the flashlight closer. I was touching a skull. The skull now sat on my passenger seat, smiling back at me. I had inspected it without fear, guessing that it was just another part of this drawn-out, twisted game. And I'd found what I anticipated. Another clue. Another set of coordinates, in full this time, were written very carefully across its teeth. It was but a short drive from where I was. 25 minutes later, I was at the next destination. The crumbling driveway of a dilapidated red brick bungalow. Weeds had overtaken the front yard and some of the windows were haphazardly boarded up. It looked as if it had been abandoned for years. Another clue, or was this the end? Grabbing the skull from the passenger seat, I walked up to the front door. As I stepped onto the porch, I was startled as the door swung open before I could knock. Long, wispy grey hair and an untidy beard could not disguise the man underneath. It was Pierre Drouin. I tried to speak. Hi, I'm...
Sarah the Gamer, I won.
He interrupted me, referring to my streaming channel username. You know my channel?
Of course I do. I've been following the search for the coordinates to this thing,
he said as he grabbed the skull from my hands.
For a long time.
Startled, I stepped back.
I had a feeling it might be you who showed up at my door,
he continued.
I must say though, you don't have a very interesting channel. Just sitting there with your hood up, plugging away, silently. Who wants to watch that?
This hurt to hear from someone I respected so much, but it was true. The tone of his voice was almost angry, as if he had hoped it would be someone else who found him.
Well, don't just stand there. Come in,
he said, gently guiding me inside. I stepped into a digital playground. It was shocking that a home that looked so terrible on the outside could be housing such an incredible display of electronics. The living room was overrun with assembled and disassembled computers, radios, televisions, phones, and gaming systems.
I'll get you some tea. Have a seat somewhere,
Drouin said as he shuffled off to the kitchen. I gently moved a few gaming cartridges off of an ancient-looking rocking chair and sat down. I waited what seemed like an eternity for Drouin to return. Finally, he emerged with 2 cups of tea and handed me one. He went to sit down in his computer chair and stopped.
Well, I guess this is a momentous occasion, isn't it?
He said, holding his cup towards me.
We should say cheers to your accomplishment, young lady.
Awkwardly clinking my cup against Drouin's, we both took a celebratory drink. The tea tasted stale. It had probably been sitting in his kitchen cupboard for years.
So I guess you're probably wondering what that skull is supposed to be, huh?
Drouin asked. Well, yes, sir, I replied. Drouin let out a big sigh.
It's my wife.
I snickered politely. He must be joking. He seemed to read my mind.
I know you think I'm joking, but I only wish that were the case. That dirty bitch was cheating on me with someone from my own company, no less.
I didn't know Drouin, but if this was a joke, he was one hell of an actor.
I guess this was my confession, so to speak,
he continued.
I killed her right before I made the game. Guilty conscience, I guess. It's nice to finally admit it though, to get it out.
But I thought she ran off on you. I spoke quietly, not wanting to set him off. Now I was starting to panic, subtly looking around for possible escape routes.
She did try to run, but she didn't get very far,
he muttered, shaking his head. His voice suddenly took a tone of anger.
I wasn't going to jail for this.
I started to shake.
I'm sorry if I frightened you,
Drouin said, his voice taking on a more relaxed tone.
As I'm sure you've guessed, the warrior in the game is not my stand-in. I'm
the devil, I said shakily, not looking at him.
Yes, and unfortunately the devil's deeds are often misunderstood, even if he has a very good reason for them.
He pointed at the tea sitting beside me and said without emotion,
Like poisoning your tea.
My hands flung up to my mouth as I yelped. What? Drouin held up a hand as if to calm me.
I poisoned mine too. Don't worry. I confessed. I feel released of this burden that I've been carrying, and I go down, legacy intact.
I started to feel lightheaded, but why poison me too? Duran cocked his head, seemingly confused by the question.
You're the only person who knows what I did. I can't have you telling anyone. Are you dense?
He flung his tea across the room, suddenly angry again, and continued.
This is the pinnacle of your life. You've spent thousands of hours playing a stupid little game in the hopes that you would meet your idol. Here I am, in the flesh. You got to share an experience with me that no one else ever will. People will probably think we made a pact or something, that we had some sort of special relationship. Not bad for you.
Head heavy, I dropped forward off the chair. I mustered enough strength to look at Duran one last time as my vision began to blur and narrow. A final tunnel to move down.
It's all right, young lady,
I heard Duran whisper.
To die with me is to die a legend.